3 disturbing hiking encounters caught on camera. I felt it crawl all over me in the dark. 2 hands pressed into the couch on either side of my head. Its face was inches from mine. I didn't turn to look. I couldn't. Tonight I'm sharing 3 hiking encounters that prove the wilderness is never truly empty. The first involves something that stalked a solo hiker through the forests of Northern California and played with him like prey. The second, a creature in the Australian outback that moved in ways no animal should. And the third, a military encounter with something so intelligent it tracked a trained soldier using tactics. These are the stories. Story 1. This happened in the summer of 2019 in the mountains of Northern California. I'd driven up from Los Angeles about 8 hours to spend a few days at a cabin near the mountain lake. It was my first time in that area, and after living in the city my whole life, I was looking forward to the quiet. I arrived around 5 p.m. and immediately crashed. The silence was incredible. No cars, no people, just nothing. I fell asleep fast. Around 4 hours later, I jerked awake. I looked around, trying to figure out what woke me. Then I heard it, tapping on the window of the back door. I listened for a minute, but couldn't see anything outside, and figured I was just being paranoid. I went back to sleep. The next night, nothing happened. The third night, well, that's when it got bad. I woke up around 4 a.m. to a crash. The attic ladder right behind the couch I was sleeping on had fallen. I heard footsteps. I was lying on my side, staring straight ahead. I didn't move. You know that feeling when you know someone's watching you? That's exactly what I felt. And then it crawled over me. I felt 2 hands pressed down into the couch cushion, one on each side of my head. I could feel its presence. Its face was right there, inches from mine. I wasn't going to turn and look. I wasn't going to move. It stayed there for what felt like forever. Then it crawled backward off the couch. I heard the dog let out a muffled bark from the other room, and then something shushed her. Shh. Good girl. Footsteps out the back door. I lay there paralyzed until sunrise. When I told my friends the next morning, they said I was being paranoid. I wanted to believe them. Later that day, the caretaker mentioned there was a river about a 50-minute walk into the woods. My friends were tired, so I grabbed some snacks and my phone and went alone. The trail was easy to follow, tall grass on both sides, straight path. When I got to the river, there were 2 picnic tables. I set my bag down and started exploring. And that's when I noticed something was off. The path back looked different, distorted almost. And the tall grass on the side had been disturbed. Huge sections of it were completely flattened, like something massive had walked through it. I thought maybe a bear, but the locals said bears avoid this area because of all the people. This was bigger than a bear anyway. I made it to the riverbank and sat down at one of the tables, and that's when the feeling started. Something was watching me. I looked across the river. There was a clearing in the bushes blocked by 2 logs in an X shape. The brush behind it was thick and dark. I kept staring at it. I couldn't help it. And the longer I sat there, the more certain I became. Something was behind those bushes. I walked down to the water, hoping to see fish or frogs, anything. Nothing, no fish, no frogs, no life at all, just mosquitoes, hundreds of them. I went back to the table, and that's when I heard it, a scream, but not human. It was gurgling like something with a mouthful of water. I froze, rustling in the bushes behind me, the ones I've been worried about. Then again, the scream, louder, so much louder, and my body finally listened and I ran. I sprinted through the forest. What should have been a quick 15-minute walk back turned into 10 minutes of pure panic. I got lost. I stopped for a second, frantic, trying to find something familiar. And that's when I realized something. I could hear it behind me. But here's the thing. Every time I stopped, it stopped. It was playing with me. I finally spotted a bridge I crossed earlier and took off again. I didn't stop running until I reached the cabin, but I didn't go inside. I stood on the porch facing the forest, and I cried. I couldn't see anything out there, but I knew it was still watching. I stood there for hours. I couldn't turn my back on it. That night we burned sage before bed. Around 4 a.m., the tapping on the window started again. This time my friend Brett heard it too. He got it on video. In the morning there was loud banging on the shed out back, and when we checked, no one was there. I left 2 hours later. I compared what I saw to everything I could find online. The only thing that came close was a Wendigo. I don't know what that thing was, but I know it was real. And I'll never go back to that river. Sometimes the wilderness shows you things that shouldn't exist, things that move wrong, things that haunt. The next story comes from the Australian outback, and the way this thing moved was completely wrong. This happened a few years ago in Southeast Australia. My girlfriend and I were out driving around 11:30 at night. It was summer, warm, clear skies. We were near some woodlands I'd grown up exploring, about 100 acres of bush that I'd spent half my childhood in, riding bikes, camping, the usual stuff. I decided to show her the area since she loves nature. I parked with my headlights shining into the trees and we walked in a bit, not far, maybe 20 meters. It was pitch black once you left the car lights. She sat down on this plastic map board someone had installed, and we just talked, had a smoke, relaxed. But I had this feeling something was wrong. I couldn't explain it. Nothing around me looked different, but every sense I had was reaching out. My adrenaline was up. I've read about this before, people feeling like they're in danger even though nothing's obviously wrong. And that's exactly what this was. I lit another cigarette to calm down and scanned the tree line again. That's when I noticed it. The tree line looked different than before. There was moonlight now hitting grass that had been in shadow a minute ago. I stared into the dark, trying to figure out what had changed, and then I saw it. There was a black shape where I thought there was a tree, but it wasn't a tree. And then all sound stopped. Complete. Dead. Silence. A few seconds later, this wave of dread hit me. Disgusting. Heavy dread. I saw motion in the darkness. Something was crawling toward us on all fours. I've seen every animal in the Australian outback. We don't have large predators like they do in the US or Europe, but somehow I knew this was a predator, and it wasn't hiding from us. It was just slowly crawling forward. I couldn't look away. It reached the edge of where my car lights could illuminate, and then it stood up, reared up on its 2 legs, and just stared at us. Now, I'm 6'4", but this thing was at least another meter taller than me, maybe more. Its arms were far too long. They reached down almost to the ground, even when it was standing. I could make out yellowish-white fur in the dim light, off-white, almost sickly looking, and the head, the silhouette looked like a dog or a wolf. I couldn't move. It was staring right at me, and I couldn't move. My girlfriend gasped. That broke whatever was holding me. I grabbed her arm and we sprinted to the car. I slammed the doors and tore out of there as fast as I could. Neither of us spoke for half an hour. When we finally did talk about it, we both agreed on one thing. The feeling we had. It's what I imagine a rabbit feels like when it sees a fox. This thing could have ended us with absolute ease if it wanted to. We've talked about it so many times since then, trying to make sense of it. We can't. There's no animal in Australia that matches what we saw, but I know what it was. It was a predator, and we were prey. I still go camping, I still hike, but I think about that night every time, and I wonder if I'll ever see anything like it again. What if the thing in the woods isn't just strong? What if it's smart? Smart enough to stalk, smart enough to cut you off. This final story comes from a military training exercise. and even the soldier who saw it couldn't explain it. This happened in 2014 at Fort McCoy, Wisconsin. I was with my National Guard unit doing night training exercises, specifically night land navigation. For those who don't know, land navigation means plotting coordinates on a map and moving to them using a compass and terrain features. At night, you do this in the dark as much as possible. When you use light, it's red to preserve your night vision. That night, about 15 of us were out there, but land nav is one of the few exercises you can do solo if you want. I've done it plenty of times before, so I stepped off alone. My route would take me to the far side of the course and back, about 2.5 hours total if I walked at a steady pace. I figured I'd walk out, take a break for an hour, then head back. The first half went fine. I found my points without trouble and ended up sitting on a hillside around 10 p.m. It was cloudy, but the moon was full. I could see pretty well, and the clouds cleared. I sat there eating stale Skittles for about an hour. Saw a few other soldiers moving around below me with their red lights. Once, a pair passed nearby using white light to read their map. I startled them when I asked if they needed help. Eventually, everyone cleared out. I was alone. I felt totally at ease. I'd been sitting in the same spot for an hour. Owls were hooting, trees were swaying, all was well. I headed down the hill and stepped through some brush into a clearing. Prairie grass meeting forest. Some dead trees scattered around. One of them was split halfway up, about 15 feet high. At the top, I could make out a silhouette against the clouds, head and shoulders. I walked closer, figuring someone had climbed up there and maybe got stuck. "Hey, you need a hand!" The shadow twitched, turned toward me. I stood there looking at it. The situation felt off, but I wasn't going to let some soldier mess with me. "You need help getting down, or—" The moonlight came back, and I saw it clearly. This was not a soldier. It looked like a person who'd been stretched out, pulled, bald, long arms clutching the stump. The face was pinched. I couldn't see its eyes or mouth clearly, like they were too small, pushed into the center of its head. Skinny, like it hadn't eaten in weeks, but obviously strong. You'd have to be to climb 15 feet straight up. And it was facing me. Probably had been the whole time. I swore loudly. It scurried down the trunk fast. I fumbled with my headlamp trying to get white light on. I caught it in the red light, moving on all fours toward the tree line, toward the direction I needed to go. I kept cycling my light, off, flashing, off. In one of the flashes, I saw it at the edge of the woods. I think it had flipped around, backing in, keeping its eyes on me. By the time I got the white light on, it was gone. I scanned the tree line. Nothing. But here's the thing. When it moved, there was a scraping sound, and the brush in those woods is dense. If it was still running, I'd hear it, which meant it had stopped. It was still there, watching me. I pulled out my knife and kept scanning the trees. My plan changed. Instead of going straight, I'd angled toward the paved road that runs along the edge of the course. Once I hit the road, I could follow it back to where our vehicles were parked. Problem: the road was 10 minutes away through the woods. I started moving, slowly, fighting every instinct to just freeze in place. After about 10 meters, I heard rustling, movements that matched my pace. I saw something shift in the darkness. That was enough. I bolted, ran straight into a downed log and went down hard. I scrambled to my feet and looked back at the tree line. There was a commotion, movement. I caught a glimpse, a leg, part of its body moving back into the woods. I started power walking toward the road, not running, not yet, but fast. I kept turning to look, trying to see what it was doing. And then I heard it, moving alongside me, parallel, keeping pace. As I got near the end of the clearing, I thought I heard it picking up speed like it was trying to cut me off. I sprinted into the woods. My path was clear, but I could hear it in my periphery, somewhere to my side, moving. I didn't stop. I hit the ground hard a few times, fell over roots, rocks, uneven terrain, but I got up faster than I'd ever gotten up in my life. Some kind of frantic speed I can't replicate consciously. I hit the paved road and ran perpendicular to the forest until I couldn't hear it anymore. I was winded, completely gassed. I walked to catch my breath, staying in the middle of the road where I had good visibility. It was quiet for a while. Then I heard a branch move about 30 feet in the air. I snapped my gaze up. A pale face, oval, half in shadow, peeking at me from around a tree trunk 30 feet up. I took off again. I didn't stop until I saw the headlights of our trucks. It was 12:15 a.m. What happened, Cadet? You got lost out there. You covered in mud. Did you fall? Why you out of breath? I got lost on my way back. Yeah, I rode down a hill. I ran to get back in time. Cadet got lost. I knew better than to say I'd seen a monster. My reaction had already left me feeling foolish. I've been back to Fort McCoy for training multiple times since 2014. I've done nightland navigation alone again. Nothing like that has ever happened. At first, I told myself I must have misinterpreted the situation, but the more I think about it, the way it moved, the way it tracked me parallel trying to cut me off, that wasn't random. That was tactical. I don't know what I saw that night, but I know it was real. I know it was hunting me. 3 stories, 3 encounters. 3 people that went into the wilderness and came back changed. The first was stalked by something that played with him like prey. The second came face to face with a predator that shouldn't exist in Australia. And the third was hunted by something smart enough to use tactics. The wilderness is beautiful, but it's not empty. There are things out there we don't understand, things that watch from the shadows, things that hunt. So the next time you go hiking, remember these stories. Stay on marked trails, trust your instincts. And if something feels wrong, leave. If you made it this far, drop your own encounter in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And if you want more stories like these, hit subscribe. The wilderness is waiting. Stay safe out there.